Today, we are joined by SJSU faculty Erin Scullion-Jones, who's going to discuss the value of creating an inclusive learning experience in her online courses. Thanks for chatting with me today, Erin.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to
Yeah,
be
of
here.
course. Always good to see you and chat with you. As
Yeah.
we do in every episode, I was hoping we could start out just by learning a little bit more about you and your background and how you got to where you are today. So I was wondering if you can highlight a few of the formative moments that shaped who you are and led you to become an SJSU faculty member, and also highlight why it's meaningful for you to teach SJSU online students.
Sure. Let's see. I'll start with sharing about myself as a non-traditional student. Like when I finished high school, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I went to De Anza College here in the Bay Area. I went to San Jose City College as well, and eventually transferred to become a teacher. I transferred to San Jose State after working in multiple industries, including nonprofit industries. And I was also a DJ at San Jose State and at Santa Clara University, online on the radio stations, both of them, KSJS and KSCU. So that was one of my favorite shaping experiences pre grad school. And so I joined San Jose State as a master's student, as a graduate, so that I could become a teacher and also earn my master's degree in curriculum and instruction. And so I joined the Critical Research Academy. At the time, it was a social justice, critical pedagogy focused program. And that really has shaped my practice as both a learner and a teacher. I taught middle school for almost 10 years before I joined San Jose State's teacher education department as a supervisor. And here I am teaching it for SJSU online in our Ed Leadership program. And this program, and this is my third semester now teaching 110. And I just love it so much. It's one of my passions with regard to thinking about how to develop critical literacy with students and how to think about, how we imagine the world and how we think about education as a system and develop ourselves as educators and learners. So, and leaders, of course. So that's part of my journey. It's a longer story, but we'll spare you the details for tonight.
Well, very cool. Thanks so much for sharing that with me. Yeah, and I'm definitely excited to learn more and have you discuss more about your class in a little bit. Appreciate hearing about your background, learning. I mean, I know that you were a DJ before, but just hearing you talk about that, I think is just so cool, because I feel like it's that, and just your overall background, I think would be very unexpected, or not what a lot of people would assume about how a faculty member came to be a faculty member. But just when I think about all those things that you highlighted as you were describing them, I was just thinking about all the different experiences that you had along the way, and all the different exposure that you had to all different people from all different walks of life with so many different identities, and how those things probably inform your teaching practices and even today's topic, and really thinking about creating an inclusive online learning experience. So it's just really cool to hear that background.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that my vision for education is really shaped by who I am and what my experiences have been, like you said, in just very different circumstances. And most of those experiences will shape the way I teach. So it's exciting.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So to get into today's topic and thinking about inclusive learning and what that means, I was wondering if we can just zoom out a little bit and have you describe generally what we're talking about when we say inclusive learning, and why is that important for teachers, learners, everyone in groups and organizations to think about.
Yeah, so I think about inclusivity in ways that we develop pedagogy and we develop ourselves as as teachers and learners. So there's like the planning aspect of thinking about how we impart content, right? Like thinking about using the chat in the Zoom space as a place where people feel comfortable engaging. Whereas and sometimes it's okay for our cameras to be off, because in spaces online, it feels sometimes it can feel really distant. And so creating a space that's close, where we're talking about difficult things, hard things, like our own specific experiences, like we were discussing at first, like sometimes it's challenging for students to get into the who I am and where I began my story. And so we focus a lot on lived experiences, thinking about all of these sort of flexible planning options from teachers and from the student point of view, like video responses, voice to text, using video and like programs like within Canvas, like Studio, and sort of and imagining what that looks like in a space online that promotes a lot of interaction and a lot of collaboration, and making sure that students are feeling safe and comfortable in these environments. And I think sometimes technology can be construed as something that promotes distance. And I really want to encourage students to engage with lots of ways that feel comfortable to them and culturally relevant and responsive. So embracing differences and abilities, and neurodivergence and neurological differences in how we learn, and how we prefer to make sure that how we prefer to learn, to make sure that folks are feeling included in these spaces. And I think that SGSU Online, in my experience in designing this course, I like to validate all of our styles of communication and learning. So I really ask students to co-create the space with me, whether that means we are interacting through the Remind app to make sure that we're keeping in contact, or talking in small groups and utilizing the emojis features a lot, thinking about how, sometimes in these spaces we can't have our camera on, because I know myself as a mother with two small children, they might just come on into the space. And sometimes thinking about creating an inclusive space means that we're acknowledging that we're not always sitting in a professional looking, or even designed room space. Like, we're thinking about learning from home, learning in spaces that might not be ideal, learning on our phone, these places that might not be as ideal as sitting in a classroom. We have to open up those spaces to include everyone. And so that's my why inclusivity is a really important aspect in planning. And then the actual implementation looks like people communicating with one another, building on these strengths, and validating the practices that are happening outside of school. Like, where are we working? What does that look like? How are we communicating our own lived experiences with one another? And really taking time to set norms and validate one another's experiences in the online space. And life comes up, like we were discussing before this, like things come up. And so we need to make space and be flexible with timelines, have discussions that really value what students are going through, and co-creating and leaving space for making space for learners to have the time to actually do the learning without tons of pressure that might feel like, oh, you got to get it done right now. It's like, well, within your life, what can you help me design for you? So it's also very individualized, I feel.
Wow, that was so much, but I think that makes sense when
Yeah.
we're talking about a topic like inclusive learning and inclusive education, that there's a lot that goes into that. But
Yeah.
I think overall, what I heard was just a lot of really focusing on building a really strong foundation, especially thinking about just creating a place where people feel safe, comfortable, if they feel like they can trust that this is going to be a place where they are going to be supported, where they're going to be able to learn. They're going to be, it's going to be like this really authentic experience. I
That's the
also heard a lot of focus too on like you were talking about, when we think about things like incorporating technology or online learning or distance learning, that we can really focus on how the challenges or the complexities of what that looks like. But I think what I heard in your response was really focusing on a lot of the opportunities that exist and how you
yes.
can incorporate those things, like the different options that you have available, the different mediums that you can use, the way that you can kind of increase access, increase the amount of incorporating people's strengths, providing flexibility that maybe wouldn't otherwise exist. So yeah, definitely a lot of positives that go along with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because there's when I think about inclusivity, I think about it from the teacher lens of planning, but also from the student lens of these are opportunities for me to learn in a style that works for me. And so
Hmm.
all of these elements go in to those to designing this experience, and it's very intentional.
Yeah, very cool. So I guess when thinking about that now, if we can kind of zoom in on your course a little bit. So you
Yeah.
teach the course Intro to Educational Leadership. I was wondering if you can discuss kind of generally what that course consists of and share an example or two of how you go about creating an inclusive learning experience for your students within your course.
Sure. I mean, what I like to do is imagine that we're in this joyful space online. So we start our course with quiet music, and we discuss like each week we have an introduction. I go over the agenda. We discuss that for about 5 minutes, and then we go into a journaling experience. So it's self-reflective journaling, and this is where folks are sharing their stories and really unpacking what's going on with their own selves, because a lot of beyond the community work we do, a lot of the work we do in 110 is self work. And so we imagine these spaces. For example, one of the prompts is discuss what your educational experiences have been. Like, talk to me about your educational and academic journey. And then we get to read folks like Paulo Freire and other really awesome pedagogical folks who we get to kind of dig into and learn about. So that's one part. And then another really important part of our course is that students find and discuss and set up an interview with someone with whom they work or someone within their community that they can identify with. And so I've had tons of speakers that work in the education sector and also business folks, thinking about like the multiple ways that we imagine what leadership is and what it could possibly be. And so one that assignment where folks are bringing in either synchronously or interviewing asynchronously has been one of the most transformative experiences for students. They are reaching out to this person, they are designing and co-creating questions with myself and colleagues, and they are then bringing them into our Zoom space on a Saturday morning, or they're interviewing asynchronously and submitting their work later to share and discuss what happened, what they've learned through this experience of doing research, because oral history and having those doing those interviews is a research methodology. And so that's part of how we get into the work of back into the work of academia, is through this assignment. And students are able to discuss, share, really build on one another's experiences and build community that way.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like such a great combination of thinking about focusing on the intrapersonal growth and development and also the interpersonal, but then also thinking about incorporating the theory and research with the applied element of it, the practice,
Yeah.
conducting the research, working together in groups to organize the panels, the project management, all that sort of stuff. So it really kind of runs the whole spectrum of all the different types of learning that you can have all packed into one course. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I know just for anyone who's watching this video, we do have an example of the Intro to Educational Leadership panel on our YouTube channel if you want to check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. I like it.
Yeah, for sure. So to wrap up today's conversation, I was wondering if you can share any examples that you know of how your students have been able to apply what they've learned in your course beyond the class as well and transfer some of those skills and experiences outside of the class.
Oh, of course. I think one of my absolute favorites is that students from each semester have been willing to come in and share what's going on and what in their lives currently and how their experience was and what they did in the course previously. So each semester I've had students who have completed 110 come in and teach and share what their experiences were, be totally willing to either be an interviewee for the oral history panels, or just guide students through the experience of that, which shows me that they've incorporated their own integrated and and incorporated the learning from the course, really connected theory to practice and how they're in their behaviors and how they're working together, and really just applying these skills, these real world project based, as you said, skills to their own work. And I recall receiving a form from some previous students who wanted to build they created a petition and an online form. So where they gathered Lurie College deans and really asked and requested to have a fully integrated online credential and BA program. And they presented their plan to the dean, and we'll see where they go. But I mean, just the experience of designing something that they want to bring forward into their community because they saw a need. And that's really the heart of the course. Like, you see a need that you, for your own community, for folks that you, which was at the time their cohort, and they brought it into the space and said, hey, this is what we want to do. We want your support. And I thought that was a really brilliant example of how our course, or how this course, really helps students develop that sense of confidence, agency, and building their leadership skills from, grounded theory up.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself. Yeah, I think those are both really great examples. As you were describing them, the idea of bringing former students back into the course to have that opportunity to engage with one another kind of across cohorts, I think is just really cool and really special. I was thinking back on my educational experience, and I can't recall many, if any, times where I really had the opportunity to do that. And I feel like it creates this really interesting and neat connection where there is this level of like mentorship, like you kind of highlighted, but it also, kind of breaks down this idea that like you're going through this as like an individual or like isolated experience. You're actually part of this larger community, this larger kind of movement that's happening. That's really cool. And then to highlight that other project specifically, or initiative that you highlighted from former students. Yeah, I think like you highlighted, it's just a really great example of how, they were able to identify a need. And like you said, have the confidence and the agency that they developed in your course to really not just say, oh, someone should do something about that, but like they took it upon themselves to take action and really, meet with those who have the potential power and authority to be able to, follow through on that initiative. So just a really cool example of how, like direct application of what they learned in your course and taking that beyond the course. So thanks for sharing.
Sure. Yeah, it's really exciting. I am very much excited for this work. I always look forward to Saturday mornings, and I know next term we're going to have Saturday mornings. So I hope to see everyone bright and early on Saturday mornings. I know we have a mellow intro, and then I always ask students, what will you do for yourself this week? That's always our exit question. What is one thing you're going to do for yourself this week to practice, self-care? I know we say that like it's kind of a buzzword now, but really it's super important. And it's one of our course learning outcomes. Like, how will you do the work-life balance? And so it's super important. And yeah, I'm just excited, ready to see more faces and bring in some former students and learn from one another.
Yeah, well, I can definitely tell just in the way that you've talked about your course, you talked about your students in our conversation, your facial expressions, your body language, that it's something that is really exciting and fulfilling for you. And I don't think many people would assume that, meeting in an online course on a Saturday morning is like the most exciting thing that they can do with their lives. But
it totally is.
But it is. Yeah. And I think that's what's great. And that's what we want people to know. So that's why we're having this conversation today. So awesome. Well, thank you, Erin, for sharing your insights about the value of SJSU Online with us. And thank you to our viewers for watching. As always, please like this video, comment with your questions and feedback, visit our website for more information or to get in contact with our enrollment counselors. And we'll catch you in the next episode. See ya.
See ya. Thank you.